let's jump right into the conclusion here of this game. The card game of Oz. It is a 1 to 4 player. It does have a solo variant, although I think this is really a 2-player game. And it plays in about 20 minutes. I don't know. It can drag on a little bit at the cards. It has a little bit of take that to it. So it can drag on, but I think 20 minutes is good. I have to preface it by saying I am a pretty big fan of Wizard of Oz. That's what drew me to this game. I had never heard of this game. I saw it at, I want to say, Grand Con, the card game of Oz, and I just bought it sight unseen, didn't know anything about it. The Oz theme pulled me in. I remember as a little boy watching The Wizard of Oz every year with my family on broadcast TV. It was a big deal in my family. We'd all sit down and watch it. It was an annual thing. We didn't have DVDs, or I don't even think we had a VCR back then, and we definitely couldn't buy the movies at that time. If at all, you could rent it, but it was very hard to rent movies. So it was an event in our house to watch The Wizard of Oz. Still to this day, my #1 musical. Some people laugh at that, but I really like The Wizard of Oz. I like The Wicked. I like the universe. So this game was going to appeal to me. I still feel like I haven't found the definitive Wizard of Oz game. I do have a lot of games in my collection, so I can't keep a game just because I like the theme, which I do here. I like the theme a lot, because I just have too many games. And if it's just going to sit on the shelf and not be played, I can't keep it. So this game will be purged. But let's talk about why this is actually a very hard, very difficult game for me to give up, because it's not bad. It's actually a good game. It's just a matter if I'm ever going to play it. So when you're going through this review, remember that I actually like this game. I love the theme. It's just a matter of, will I play it? I don't think so. I think it's got some things holding it back. One of the things that's holding it back for me is the lack of tokens. Sure, I could get cubes. Sure, I could find tokens. I could pimp this game out, if you will. I could add things to it. There's just a lot going on. I mean, there's a lot going on with these location cards, the way they interact with the cards that you're going to be playing, and the characters. It's fun. It may not be strategic enough for me. It may have a little bit too much luck and random, depending on, did you get the metal weapon or item that goes with the metal character, or did you just never get that drawn to you? I'm okay with that normally, but for some reason in this game, it's kind of lacking. The box is rather big. The box is big for kind of what comes in the box. There's a lot of air in the box. I do like these tuck boxes that come. I believe this is a Game Salute thing. Love this. Love that we have this. And they come all very colorful and nice. And there's different story sets. There's a lot in this game. There's a lot that people are going to enjoy. I've never played any collectible games like Magic or anything like that, but I imagine that the cards are a lot like this, where there's the cost to put it out, the victory points at the end, and the powers. And you have a lot of these little I don't know what to call them, but attributes maybe. This guy's a Winky, platoon, human, soldier, male, group, minor. All of those things may be triggered by a location or another card. I mean, they could be triggered by nearly anything. You have to keep track of all this. When you're moving your characters, it's very hard to keep track of how many points everything is. You're constantly counting them up. I think a scoreboard might have helped, or some way to kind of keep track of it, going back and forth, if you will. Have been very helpful. I feel like the art is very good in this game. I love the art. Restuffing the scarecrow and the pictures in this. I know you can't see it from there, but the art is very good in this game. If you're a fan of Wizard of Oz, it's not from the movie. I'm not sure if it's original art or not. It appears to be, but it could be drawn from some comic book or cartoon that I'm unaware of. But it looks really good. I think you'll be very happy with it. The Castle of Oz. I mean, it just looks fantastic. And you have the poppy fields and the yellow brick road. It doesn't look as happy as, say, the movie. So a lot of this is probably coming from the book series. I do like these player aids that you get, which are actually part of the game board, if you will, that you make up with the cards. There's no actual board. The cards make up the board. But it's very easy. There's only 4 things you can do on a turn. It's very simple. It's not a game for non-gamers. It's not a game for anybody like that isn't used to kind of thing. There's a lot going on with these cards, people will easily lose track of it, and you kind of have to go back and almost read your cards every single time, which can add to some analysis paralysis and can add to the time to the game because you have to go back. Now, the more you play it, the more you're likely to get used to the cards. There's different storylines. Scarecrow's not going to work the same way every time. Dorothy's not going to work the same every time. And that brings up a good point that there's more versions. There's more than just one Tin Man. There's more than one Scarecrow. And that's kind of how they get around the fact that, who wants to play the Winky Platoon and you be the Scarecrow? Or you be Dorothy and I'll be the Winky Platoon. Like, nobody wants to do that. So having multiple Dorothys where we could all be her, or all be the Tin Man, or the Scarecrow, or the Cowardly Lion, or the Wizard of Oz himself. You're not stuck with characters you just don't want to be. I remember playing a Harry Potter game where one person was Harry, one was Hermione, one was Ron, and one was Neville. And everybody was all the kids were kind of fighting over who was going to be Harry or Hermione. Nobody wanted to be Ron. So this game kind of takes that away. It's a good game. It plays fairly quickly. It's a card game. There's no, like I said, there's no board. There's no real components other than cards. And your mileage may vary. If you're a fan of Wizard of Oz, give it a shot. You may like it. But they were promising some other. This is called Series 1, promising other series. I haven't got any of that. I don't know anything about it. I would love to try it out. Maybe if I saw it somewhere. This might be a game, even though I'm getting rid of, that I come back to at some point. I do like the theme quite a bit, and it's a solid game. So probably try before you buy, although I will be purging it. As for the rules, let's go over the rules really quickly. You're going to have a full-color rule book, which is very, very helpful, especially with a game like this with a theme and you want the artwork to come out. You're going to get a component list with pictures, which is always warranted to me, and you're going to get a setup picture. The setup picture is pretty good. This book is not very wordy. There's not a lot of rules in the game. What they're going to do is they're going to tell you about the round and how to play it, which is very helpful. And then the way this game is set up is you're going to have story packs. And a deck of cards is going to be one story. This one happens to be Strange New World, and there's a little storyline on the back that you're going through. And then you're going to have story 3. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's the Great Outdoors. So this one's going to have more like monsters and stuff in it, and animals. And then you're going to have, let's see, this one is number 4, The Wizard. So it's going to be more about the wizard type deck. So these are going to be stories, technically, that you're going to go through, although there's no coherent story going on. You're just playing cards. So don't get too much in that. But the locations should be matched up. There's particular locations that you're going to use based on which deck of cards you're going to use. And that's fairly neat, but there's no coherent story here. I wouldn't get used to that. And then it kind of takes you through each of the characters and what the cards do and how they work. And this is very helpful. The only bad thing is there are some rules that you need for the game hidden away in here. For example, the fact that you only have one Dorothy or one Tin Man, one character at a time, and how you take this one off the board and put another one in. That's stuck back here in the examples. I'm not a real big fan of that. For simplicity's sake, they do that. It did make it easier for me to find it, but I like all the rules come in one place, and then you could have done all this, which this is all good. It's just I don't like the rules kind of hidden here. So these are pretty good. And then they kind of give you some rules with 3 or more tacked on. This is a 2-player game. Just keep it at 2 players. I'm not a big fan of the 3-player game. And there's some variants of stuff in here that you can use the challenge mode. And then more of those story packs and how to use those. And they're very easy to use. This isn't like going through one of the legendary sets, like Aliens or Predators, trying to find all the cards. They were fairly easy. There's multiples of each card. So if this deck and this deck needed the poppy fields, there's one for each one. You're not having to share it going back and forth. So you can literally set it up so you're ready to go whenever you want to play a certain story. Not have to go, okay, I gotta get the poppy fields out of here, I gotta get the yellow brick out of here. There's multiple copies, and that was a very nice touch for that. This is how the game is normally set up. You're going to have locations in the middle with the 2 title cards on either end. You're normally going to have 6 locations here. I got 4 just to get it all in frame so it would look nice, but normally it would be 6. And the object of the game really is just to get a prime character. And you'll see here that this will say prime right here. Some characters are what you call prime or main characters. You want to get them from your end all the way down to the other end. Once you get somebody there, the game will end. Then you will tally up the points and to see who the winner is, and the most points is the winner. And they're called story points. You'll start the game out with 5 of these, which will be your hand of cards. The other player will not be able to see them. And you're going to roll 4 blue dice every turn, and at minimum 1 gold, but you also get an additional die for each character you have in play. And so you roll these dice, and you just count up how many successes you have. Right here, we have 1 success. So we would have 1 story point. Now these dice are not printed very well, so I always like to take a different look at them. Now, here are the things that you can do on your turn. For 1 story point, you can draw a card from the top of the deck. That's 1 story point. At this point, your turn would be over, and it would be the next player's turn. And let's say the other player went, and you went again. And this time we rolled 4 story points. We could, for another story point, draw another card, which we do not want to do at this time. We could move a character from location to location. We don't have any characters out, so we don't want to do that yet. Or we can choose a face-up location in the storyline and replace it with a top card. So we can swap these cards out. If we're not happy with the locations, I'll get into how they work. We can swap them out with the top of the deck. Or you can play a card from your hand. So all the cards in the hand are going to have a number that signifies how much it's going to cost to play this card. Okay? And each of these cards is going to have a cost in the top left corner. And these are going to be how many story points it costs to play it. So I want to get a character out, a prime character, and this is the Tin Woodsman. I need to get him from here all the way down. It doesn't have to be him, but he just happens to be the one I'm playing. So I'm going to play 3 story points and start him at my title action. And that's going to be 3 story points. And he is going to be right there. Now, I also happen to have an object. If you look at it, this object is metal, and it must be equipped on a metal character. Which is good news for me, because you can see he is a animate metal male prime. These things are going to come up with different cards, as you just saw with this one. So he's metal, so I can play this card to him for my other story point. At that point, my turn would be over. I've used all my story points. Now, at the end of your turn, you're going to be able to move your character 1 space. So I want to move him down here to win the game. So let's get him moving. And this is not going to cost you anything unless the card says you do. Normally it would cost you 1 story point to move to a location, but at the end of your turn you're going to get 1 free movement. This says an exterior Oz, it's a yellow brick road, rough and difficult, and characters are vitality -1. So your vitality score will be -1. Vitality works kind of like your health. So we can move him here, and I like to put, if you're moving this way, just kind of put him at the top here. And that shows that you have 1 person out there. Now, the other player, the way we play it, will be playing cards across the bottom. Not just to signify whose cards are whose. It just works out well for us. On his next turn, so the other player would go, and they might be placing cards down here. Now I'm going to get to roll the 4 blue dice and the 2 gold. Okay? Now let me roll these and see what I got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a perfect roll for me. I'm going to have 6 actions to do what I want. Now let's say one thing I could do for 1 story point, draw a card from the top of the deck. For another story point, I can move another location. Now, whenever you move to a location, especially if it's new, you need to kind of check the card out and see what it does. So this right here is Glinda's Palace, and what it does is a castle at Oz. And some of these cards will play off these words that will be here. So you might have, like I have a card here in my hand that basically states, archive all enemies at all Emerald City locations. So if this had said Emerald City location, or Emerald City, and I had played that event card, I could get rid of all the animals from on the board. This one says if an evil character moves or is moved to this location, archive it. Good red Oz characters of vitality +1. So if you have a bad guy that you're trying to get through the board, let's say the Wicked Witch of the West, you're going to want to swap that out as quickly as possible because you're not going to be able to get them through the path here. So that might be one of those cards we talked about earlier where you can spend 2 of your story points. I spent 1 here to move. Maybe I want to move 2. I can take this out of the game and then put a new one off the top of the deck there. Okay? So instead of being Glinda's Palace, it's now a field of daisies. Non-animate characters are vitality +1. So it gives a little bit of bonus. And each location is going to do something a little bit different. You just kind of got to keep track of it. One of the downfalls is there's no tokens in this game. There's no way to keep track of this sort of thing. You just got to constantly read these and kind of memorize them. And as you're swapping through these, I mean, there's a lot in the deck, and a lot of these are the same ones more than once, which is there for convenience and ease of setting up the decks. So I've spent 2 to swap out that location. Really didn't need to, but I wanted to illustrate how it works. I could play another card from my hand. Let's say I wanted to play Dorothy. Dorothy, dress for travel. She requires 3 story points to play, and I put her there. And the little numbers at the top are just the victory points at the end of the game that you're going to score. And so I have played her, and that would be the end of my turn, and the next person would then go. So the way the game is going to end, if I got him all the way to the end, I would count up all the scores of people in my row, all the characters. So let's say I had these 2 characters here. I would calculate this up, and I would get 7 points. 4 plus 3 is 7. So let's illustrate, once again, just really quickly what happens. You're going to roll the dice, and you're going to use these story points. You can use 1 to draw from the top of the deck, 1 to move a character to your location. Keep in mind when you move to certain locations, they may require additional story points. You can spend 2 story points to change out the location like we did here, or you can spend the number of story points to play these cards. And these cards are going to progress you down. It's going to be a lot of back and forth. There's going to be a lot of characters coming off the board. Now, one additional interesting thing is that there's multiple characters. So if I was able to get Dorothy all the way down here, and then you played a Dorothy, mine would come off the board, and your Dorothy would basically come in her spot. So it is kind of weird how they can change sides for you. As for story, this is supposed to be progressing a story until you get the end when somebody gets there, and it's supposed to tell a little bit of story in the land of Oz. And that's pretty much how it works. Not very complicated. Most of the rules and what's going on is going to come from these cards. Okay, let's talk about who should buy this game. Hands down, any gamer who's a fan of Oz. You should buy this game, try it out at least, see if it works for you. If you're a fan of card games, this is a good card game. It's light enough to jump into, and everything kind of comes in the cards as they come out. And there's only 4 things you can do on your turn. It's kind of a little bit of a race to get there, but it's not just the first person who gets there to wins. It's having the vitality points, having enough people and characters and things out. And these locations will give you bonuses. So if you have, I'm making this up, but Aunt M's house, if Aunt M is at Aunt M's house, she's going to get a bonus for being there. And things kind of make sense. It's really neat. This is not for non-gamers. This is not for first-time gamers. This is not for newbies. There's a lot moving around on here. I don't think it's a heavy game. I would probably say light to medium, but I would think that this shouldn't be your first card game. You might want to start with something a little bit easier. But if you're a fan of the series and ready to jump in and give it a game or 2 to learn the rules, I think that there's some fun here in this box. And I think people will mostly enjoy it. Fans of Oz is a no-brainer. If you like the Wizard of Oz movies only, the artwork is not going to be from that. I don't know if you can see it. This is more, I believe, original art. So you're not going to see a lot of the stills, but the characters are still here. You're going to see Glinda. You're going to see Dorothy, Lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Wicked Witch of the West. They're all going to be here. And they're promising more and more in the series. So if you're a fan of the books, I think this will lean more towards you. But this is a neat little card game. I'd recommend if you're at a con to at least try it, or if your buddy has it, to try it out, and don't dismiss it right away just because it's not getting the hype or the pub that some other games have. There's an interesting history of this game if you want to go online and read about it. But as for the card game of Oz, I'm going to recommend it. I will be purging it. And if you're a fan of the Oz series, absolutely 100%. Give it a try /buy.